Welcome to a brand new series, HR Talks, powered by GIBS Business School, where innovation meets inspiration. I'm your host Kavshri Rajendran, and today we are going to discuss about being employable. As you all know, in the recent years, due to recession, technological disruptions, and other factors, employment has become a privilege and only available for those who adapted to these changes. However, no one should miss out on their dream jobs, at least not you. So, keeping that in mind, we are kickstarting the series with an expert in the people business, Ms. Madhuri Mohan Prasad, also known as the Mad HR. She has over 12 years of experience and also a startup people advisor. She holds a degree in psychology and masters in human resource management. Also, she has a certifications in gamification and employer branding. Welcome Ms. Madhuri to HR Talk series powered by GIBS Business School. Before we dive in, could you please let us know about your educational background and the journey that led you to the HR field?
Sure. So I am from Cochin in Kerala, and I did my graduation in psychology from PSG College in Coimbatore. I did a couple of internships while I was doing my graduation in psychology, and this was at a mental health institute in Kerala. While I was doing my clinical psychology internship there, I realized that I am not really the proper fit for a clinical psychologist because I was way too empathetic, and it was beginning to affect my personal life as well. And I realized that I want to be around people and I want to solve people problem, but not in a clinical kind of manner. But I also wanted to ensure that I had something to do with people, which is when my professor and family suggested that I go into something more management style, which is why I chose HR. And that is how I did my postgrads in Masters in Human Resource Management from Rajagiri Business School. And post that, I started out as a recruiter. That was my first job. And then I moved into business development for a brief bit. I was doing marketing and business development for a team at Oracle. And from there, I've always been in HR. My third company, I think I started HR full time. And since then, I have been an HR practitioner. I have been working for the last 13, 14 years and stayed employable all the time. I also do content writing as a part of it is something that it's a pet project, like you call it. I have been a content writer again for the last 13, 14 years, and I'm still at it. So, yeah.
Okay. Since you told you had a career shift from marketing to HR,
Yes.
how did the industry expect it? I mean, from the marketing to the HR field, how did you transfer the journey?
So what I actually did was I was in the business development team at Oracle, and there was an opportunity that came there where they wanted somebody to be the HR Spock for that particular team, and I kind of chanced upon that opportunity, and I was fortunate enough to take up that role. So I was the HR Spock for the business development team as well.
Okay.
And then, because I had that experience within Oracle itself, I was able to move into HR in another company. So I think that is very important, that if you are shifting careers, I think one of the first thing to do is look for a role, look for a job inside the company itself, so that you have a chance to get the same role outside.
Okay, great to hear. Ma'am, moving on to my questions, I'm just curious to know about why you brand yourself as the Mad HR.
All right. So this was suggested by a friend about 14, 15 years back, when I was just about to step into my career. It was a name suggested by a friend because ever since I've been in school, college, and started my career, nobody seems to get my name correct.
Okay.
Nobody could spell my name, pronounce my name properly. And I had moved from psychology to content to business development to marketing and then finally HR. So the friend suggested that I keep another brand name for myself so that people don't get confused as to how to pronounce my name, and keep it as simple. And since you're in HR, let's just go by the Mad HR. And that is how the brand was born.
Okay, it sounds interesting. Um, what are the top skills employers look for in a fresh MBA graduates?
In fresh, I think not just fresh graduates across the spectrum, employers today, organizations today are looking at how fast can you adapt to changes, which means that when there is a change in the business environment, when there are changes that come, how quickly are you able to adapt to those changes? Second is how technology driven are you? Are you somebody who can use technology to your advantage? Are you using it to improve your quality of work? Are you using it to improve the accuracy of your work, the speed of your work, and how much are you using AI to your advantage? Number three is, are you somebody who can solve problems on the go? Can you approach a problem logically and come to a conclusion and solve it as fast as possible in the best possible manner? And the fourth is communication.
Yes.
How good can you communicate? Can you put your thoughts very directly, and can you articulate it really well when it comes to a problem or when it comes to a task at hand? How good are you able to articulate the solution?
Okay. Okay. Since you told about what industry is looking from a fresher graduates, I wanted to know what are some common mistakes candidates do during their interviews.
One of the most common mistakes I have seen, and I think this is after ChatGPT came into the picture,
Yes.
is that when you are attending an interview, and most often what happens is, even whether it's on a video or whether it's a face to face interview, I have noticed that candidates come very prepared with set answers, and we know that it is through ChatGPT because the answers are all the same. People forget that they need to customize these answers to the experiences they have, to the personality they are. People don't they just cut, copy, paste, and then just read. When I have noticed this in candidates, that when we are speaking to them, they're looking at me directly, but they are answering they look into my eyes and they're reading from Chat GPT. I think this is one of the biggest problems that we are facing today. The second is, I don't think bad mouthing will ever get you anywhere. So a lot of times when we ask a question and the candidates don't know an answer, they tend to play the victim, and they kind of badmouth the organization, the institution, the manager, and that gives a very negative impact to the interviewer. So there are ways in which you can answer that question in a very normal way without putting the blame on somebody. And I think the third most important thing is, when you finish an interview, when the interviewer asks you, do you have questions for us? Most often the answer is no. And that is it's a turn off, because how can you not have a question at the end of 50 minutes, 60 minutes? You can ask about the culture, you can ask more about the role, you can ask about the expectation that the company has when you join, all these things. But most often the case is that they don't have any question to ask, which means you're not very inclined to the company, or you're not very interested.
Yes. Yes. Okay, moving on to my next question. How much it is important for a person to upskill themselves to stay updated in the jobs?
I think lifelong learning means lifelong employability. And I can say this because I have seen people advance in their career sure by surely just upskilling themselves and upgrading themselves. What happens is, you have new technology that comes out almost every other year. You have best practices come out every other day. You have systems, processes, all these things that happen, changes that happen in the business. And when you do not keep abreast of what is happening in the industry, in the domain, in the vertical that you're working for, you stay back, you lag behind the competition, and people will just move forward. And suddenly you wake up and you realize that the world has moved so much and you were sleeping. And that is a huge problem that we also come across today, because although with COVID you have a diverse pool, we have a diverse pool since remote working and hybrid models are all in trend today. We get to pick and choose from a diverse pool. But even then, when you look at employability and you look at certain factors like your willingness to learn, like your adaptability to change, you realize that that pool is smaller. And that is because most people like a comfort, like to stay in that comfort zone, and they don't want to move. But what they don't understand is that the way the world is moving today, technology that was very, very much in demand about 5-6 years back are now becoming obsolete. And earlier this used to happen decades later, but nowadays it's become like 3 years, 4 years,
Yes.
and that's it. So I think lifelong learning leads to lifelong employability.
Yes. Since you spoke about the COVID, ma'am, my next question is how was the impact on work from home jobs? How it impacted on the employability?
COVID's impact on employability, if you ask me, I think is more on the negative side.
Okay.
We have, as HR professionals, and when we speak to other leaders in other domains, what we have, I think, come to a consensus is that with COVID, what has happened is people have settled into a very comfort zone. They are in a comfort space that they just can't seem to get out of.
Yes.
And what has happened is they are demanding for flexibility in terms of work. They are also demanding that their work arrangements are in a certain way that caters to their lifestyle, caters to their timings, etc. And this is becoming difficult when you are running an organization, because you can't have people getting up, one group showing up at 9 o'clock in the morning, the other group showing up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then getting the work done. So while remote work has a lot of positives about it, like you have flexibility, you can manage time very well, you are more productive. What happens is when your timing does not match with the other person, your productivity becomes low, and your turnaround time becomes it slows down your turnaround time, and things get affected, business gets affected. So employability in terms of after COVID, to me, I think has decreased significantly. But yeah.
Okay. My next question is how. What do you think about personal branding and how it is important for a job seekers to build one?
Personal branding, if you ask me, is not for everybody. And that is mainly because, there is a certain consistency that is required when you are, and it's for a brand for that matter.
Yes.
Any brand for that matter, there is certain consistency, and you should be able to sustain that brand. How do you do that? In terms of personal branding, if you ask me, people should know you for the work that you do. And today it is a little more easier because you have social media. Back in the time, it was mostly word of mouth, and people would know, oh, this person who works here is great at this, and that is how word gets along. But today you have social media, your reach is so much more than what it was, and hence it is on you to decide whether you want to be known in your domain, in your sphere. And for that, you have to have consistently, you have to have something to show, something visible for everybody, so that people know that, oh, if I look at this person's profile or if I look at this person's blog, you can read up on what is happening in the industry, and that is the only way that you can keep up your personal brand.
Okay. Okay. Ma'am, why do you think we are seeing an increasing trends of employees leaving an organization within first few months?
So we call it nascent attrition, and generally, I think, to me, honestly, this is a good thing. I'll tell you why. So as organizations, we invest a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort in grooming a certain employee.
Yes.
The first 3 months, first 6 months, probation as we call it. So we are investing a lot of time so that we know that this is for the long run. And what happens is these days, employees, freshers, this generation basically, I think they know what is it that they're looking for in a company.
Yes.
They are very, very fast learners, and they understand dynamics within the organization, the culture within the organization, the first few weeks itself. So they know that if I stay, in this company for a longer period of time, it might not really, I will not gain anything out of it, and I'm not really contributing to the company also, because it does not align with the goals that I have for myself or the culture that I want to belong to. And hence, I think most people of this generation are saying, or they're walking away from a company in the first few months because they know that it is unfair on the company, it is unfair on themselves also to spend time when you know it is not going to work out for you in the long run. I think that's the reason why you have why nascent attrition has gone up.
Yes. Moving on to my next question, how do you weigh the importance of candidates' attitude versus their technical skills?
I think both technical skills and attitude go hand in hand. Unless and until you can put that skills that you have acquired over the years to good use, and unless you have a strong intent to solve a problem using those skills, you will not get along. You will not move ahead in your career, because technical skills can only get you so much. Like I have come across so many managers who are extremely good technically, but are the worst people managers that you can never come across. And that is because they are focusing only on the technical aspect of their personality. You need to be your attitude needs to be in a way that you can help somebody grow in their career as well. And it's very difficult to find somebody who's very technically qualified as well as extremely good people managers, because like I said, I think technology and attitude needs to go hand in hand. Otherwise there is only so much you can reach.
Okay, so if a person is having a strong attitude, they can develop their skills.
Yes, intent versus skill. It's always skill versus intent. Like even when we speak to employees, we always try to find out whether it's a skill problem or whether it's an intent problem. So, in all probability, if it's a skill issue, I think you can teach them the skill and it's okay. But if it's an intent issue, it's very difficult to get somebody to move in a certain way, because that is not their intent.
Yes, I got it. My last question to you, as we were talking about the people who are leaving the jobs in first few months,
Right.
what will be your piece of advice for them?
I think nascent attrition is not something organizations can do much about. But as individuals, as employees, as people who are looking for a job first time, or even if it's in between their career, the most important thing is to find out a lot more about the company before you join the company. Now, how do you do that? You can have network. Like I said, social media it can be put to very good use as well. Use your network, build your network, grow your network in a way that you will be able to have a conversation with somebody within the company before you join. And you can use all these platforms like Glassdoor, Google reviews, AmbitionBox, all of these to ensure that you understand the culture before you join. When you understand the culture before you join, it gives you an advantage, because you know exactly what you're getting into, and you will be able to make up your mind as to whether this culture or the objectives of this organization, the vision of this organization, aligns with what you want your career to be. And I think that's the only way you can companies can reduce their nascent attrition. And it is in one way good for you that you also know what you are getting into, so that you don't get into a dilemma after 1 month as to whether I joined the correct place, should I move from here or not. Research, I think, goes a long way in the company, to understand the culture of the company and to understand what kind of people you're going to be working with. I think that's it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am,
Thank
for
you.
your insightful discussion.
Thank you so much.
With that, we have come to an end of this episode. I hope to meet you all very soon again with another HR Talk series powered by GIBS Business School. If you found this session valuable, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe at the rate GIBS Business School, and also follow GIBS Business School in all social media handles to keep updated. I'm your host Kavishri Rajendran signing off, and this is HR Talk series powered by GIBS Business School, where innovation meets inspiration.